Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. We have everybody here but Mark. Additions to the agenda.
We do have two additions to the agenda, one in business and one personnel.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Cheryl.
Second.
Second by Akella. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Then we have the 741, District 741 is proud of. Am I getting an echo off this thing?
Move them closer, please, then we'll.
Oh, that
then I don't have to bring it up.
No, just up there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Jacob Magus, grade 12, for winning his 100th career varsity wrestling match. Jacob Magus, grade 12. Anthony Wentlet, grade 12. And Sean Root, grade 8, for earning West Central Conference All-Conference in Wrestling for the 2014-15 season. Connor Mahar, grade 9, and Grant Ludwig, grade 9, for earning honorable mention in the West Central Conference in Wrestling for the 2014-15 season. Jacob Magus, grade 12, Anthony Wentlet, grade 12, and Sean Root, grade 8, for placing first at sections qualifying for the 2015 Minnesota State High School League State Wrestling Tournament. Anthony Wentlet, grade 12, for earning all-state honors by placing third at 182 pounds, or at 182 pounds in Class A at the 2015 Minnesota State High School League State Wrestling Tournament. The Paynesville Area Bulldog Varsity Wrestling Team for earning the Silver Academic Team Award for the 2014-15 season. Next would be girls basketball. Kayla Schaefer, grade 12, Brian Lee, grade 11, and Caitlin Spanier, grade 10, for earning West Central Conference All-Conference in girls basketball for the 2014-15 season. Taylor Bird, grade 12, for earning honorable mention West Central Conference in girls basketball for the 2014-15 season. Kayla Schaefer, grade 12, for being a Miss Basketball candidate. Kayla Schaefer, grade 12, for earning all section 6AA in girls basketball for the 2014-15 season. Kayla Schaefer, grade 12, for setting the school record for the most career points in girls basketball with 1,370 points. Boys basketball. Mitchell Widener, grade 12. Matthew Quaid, grade 12, for earning West Central Conference All-Conference in boys basketball for the 2014-15 season. Brandon Schlepper, grade 12, for earning honorable mention West Central Conference in boys basketball for the 2014-15 season. Mitchell Widener, grade 12, for scoring his 1,000th career point in boys basketball during the 2014-15 season. Mitchell Widener, grade 12, and Matthew Quaid, grade 12, for earning all section 6AA in boys basketball for the 2014-15 season. Girls hockey. Allie Stanger, grade 12, for earning Central Lakes Conference All-Conference in girls hockey for the 2014-15 season. Allie Stanger, grade 12, for earning all section 8AA in girls hockey for the 2014-15 season. Allie Stanger, grade 12, for being named to the Central Lakes Conference Scholar Athlete Honor Roll for the 2014-15 season. Allie Stanger, grade 12, for being selected to the Section 8 All-Star Team and the Section 8 Senior Classic Game for girls hockey. In dance, Caitlin Mrozik, grade 12, Sydney Riley, grade 10, for earning West Central Conference All-Conference in high kick dance for the 2014-15 season. Kenzie Haynes, grade 12, earning honorable mention for the West Central Conference in high kick dance for the 2014-15 season. Boys hockey, Grant Thompson, grade 11, for earning Central Lakes Conference All-Conference in boys hockey for the 2014-15 season. Trevor Mead, grade 12, for earning honorable mention in the Central Lakes Conference in boys hockey for the 2014-15 season. Trevor Mead, grade 12, for being named to the Central Lakes Conference Scholar Athlete Honor Roll for the 2014-15 season. Gymnastics, Heather Arnold, grade 12, for earning all conference in gymnastics for the 2014-15 season. Future Farmers of America. Congratulations to the following Future Farmers of America teams as they qualify for state at their region contest. They will compete in the state convention April 26th to 28th. Great job, team. The dairy judging team took first place. Team members were Kyle Willenbring, grade 12, placed second. Tanner Schaefer, grade 12, placed sixth. Ashton Knapp, grade 11, placed 8th. Marissa Willenbring, grade 10, 10th. And Anthony Wentlet, grade 12. The Ag Mechanics team took second place. The team members were Andrew Lensmeyer, grade 11, placed 4th. Corey Dahl, grade 11, placed 9th. Jonathan Schaefer, grade 12. Grant Reitmeyer, grade 9, and Matthew Leeser, grade 9. So for everybody, we have a lot of kids doing a lot of fantastic things in the Paynesville school system. And thanks for everybody putting this together. Natalie's not here for her part of it. So next on our agenda is public comment, and we're certainly glad everybody's here, but we are open for public comment. So since everybody's jumping up for public comment, I will say before we go much further, we have a microphone right down here, and would be on your left side, I guess. We'd like you to come down to that microphone when you talk. We have people at home listening, and we want to make sure that you record it as you speak. Approve and correct minutes from the March 24th, 2014 regular board meeting. I'll make a motion we approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
A second by Heidi. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Next will be the consent agenda. And we have been doing the consent agendas all in one time, even though they're different topics. Are we all okay that we do it the same? Okay. Review and consider approval authorizing the elementary principal to execute and file an application for the 2015-16 school year title programs.
These are all on the consent agenda. These are all typical things that we've done every year.
Okay. If somebody's got questions or conversation, just barge in here. Review and consider approving the issue of diplomas for the members of the class of 2015 who have successfully completed all of the necessary requirements for graduation. Okay. And number 3, review and consider approval of notice of desire to negotiate with the Service Employees International Union, Local 284 Food Service. If there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion to. We have a motion from Lou to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Okay, business items. We're going to stay with our order?
Yep, right now we are. Yep.
And again, very nice that everybody came to enjoy our meeting here. Number 1 is presentation from Innovative Power Systems regarding a community solar garden. And I think number 1 and 2 are kind of closely
They're tied together, but we'll listen to the presentation. If the board remembers, they asked a small group of us to take a look at a couple of the solar garden developers. And we did that. We did meet, and Innovative is the group that we felt best matched us, so we brought them back for a second opinion. Other members of that committee that want to speak out can certainly do that. But he's going to present a little bit about what he presented to the whole board. And then there is a letter of intent that he'll speak to also about the next step would be if we desire to continue with this.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Jamie Burrell from Innovative Power Systems. We are a solar developer based out of St. Paul. We've been in business since 1991, and I'm here to talk about community solar gardens, which are, excuse the bad pun, something new under the sun. If you'll flip to the next page, please.
I just have the same presentation.
Yep, that's great. So, as background, community solar gardens are a way for organizations, companies, and residences to enjoy the benefits of a solar system without putting it on their home or business. So we have an off-site solar garden, and it's important to note that the solar garden, as approved by the Public Utilities Commission and Xcel Energy, needs to have at least 5 subscribers per garden. No single subscriber can own more than 40% of the garden. So what happens is that we have an off-site solar garden, and for all the electricity produced by the solar garden, the subscribers get bill credits on their bill. And in this case, a third party would actually pay us, Innovative Power Systems, to build the solar garden. And that third party would then bill the school district for the power that's produced by the solar garden. So there's 2 separate transactions here. There's bill credits from Xcel to the district for the electricity, and then a lower rate would be the bill that's paid by the district to the third party owner, which in this case would be Washington Gas or WGL Energy out of McLean, Virginia. Does that concept make sense to everybody? Good, I'm going to continue to roll on here. Next page, please. Just a quick commercial about IPS, so you know that who we are. We've been in business since 1991. We were named the top solar installer in the country in 2013. That has been repeated in 2014 as well. We've installed systems for Xcel Energy, Great River Energy, headquarters, Science Museum of Minnesota. We've also been installing a lot of systems for schools over the past couple years, utilizing a Made in Minnesota incentive using Minnesota panels. And we've installed systems at Holdingford, at St. Cloud, Annandale, Becker, Rockford, Waconia. So we've been working with school districts throughout the state in Xcel territory to install systems, and it's been a great success. And so we have leveraged that relationship, and we have commitments from several school districts already to be part of these community solar gardens. So when I said that we need to have at least 5 subscribers per solar garden, we already have commitments from Annandale, from Holdingford, from Chisago Lakes, and we are expecting several other school districts to join into the solar gardens here soon. So what we do is place Paynesville into several solar gardens with other school districts and people from the community to take advantage of this program that's offered by Xcel Energy. Next slide, please. So this is just 30 seconds. Innovative Power is the boots on the ground, but we work when we need help on the labor side with Musco Electric. They're a union contractor. We are also a union electrical contractor. WGL would be the eventual owner of the system. They've installed over 120 megawatts of solar projects throughout the country. And then New Energy Equity, who is the actual named company on the letter of intent, is the facilitator and business developer partner of Innovative Power Systems, and we do the front end work, and once we get approval from the utility, at that point, that's when WGL steps in and signs a contract with us because they don't want anything to do with the project until it's ready to build. Next page, please. So this is where the rubber meets the road. Again, to emphasize, if I haven't done so already, there would be no money required by the school district to get into a community solar garden. The money would start flowing once the solar system is producing power. So the district can have up to 120% of its total electric consumption be used towards the solar garden. So we have based Paynesville's subscription off of the usage, and so your subscription would be for about 2 million kilowatt hours per year. So the first column is total kilowatt hours. That's the power produced by the solar array. The next column is the electricity rate, and that is the money that is paid by Xcel Energy to the district in the form of bill credits. And in this case, it's 11.46 cents to start. That number is locked in already. We are assuming a 2.75% escalator on that electricity rate. So you'll see in year 2, there's 11.77 cents. In year 3, 12.09. So that at the end of 25 years, which is what the contract is, we're assuming that the rate is going to be about 22 cents a kilowatt hour. This is the one variable in the equation, and this is our best estimate. That number could be higher or it could be lower. We don't really know. Historically, electricity has increased at about 3.5% per year, so we're trying to be conservative here, but there's always the risk that electricity gets cheaper. That's very unlikely to happen, but the board and everybody should know that that is the risk going into this, okay? So just moving on, the next rate is the PPA rate. That is the power purchase agreement rate, which in this case is 10.8 cents. And that is the money that's paid to the third-party owner of the system. So what you have in the next column is the bill savings, which is also known as the bill credits, and that is the total kilowatt hours times the electricity rate, which in this case is $238,000 for year 1. And then the next column is the solar payments, which is the PPA rate times the total kilowatt hours, which is about $224,000. So that the savings in year 1 is the savings minus the payments, which is about $13,000. At a 2.5% rate escalator at year 10, under the annual savings column, we're at about $70,000, $75,000. At year 25, we're over $200,000. So over the course of 25 years, we are estimating that this would save the district about $2.5 million. I went through that very quickly. Does that make sense to everybody? It's a new concept, and I understand it's a little bit tricky, so I try to go through it slow.
You take questions as you go?
Absolutely.
So, our billing credit right now is 11.46. We would be billed 10.8 cents.
Correct.
So 5 years from now, if the price is exactly the same, would we have escalated past that price with no savings? Say the price doesn't, because if you look at some of the history of electrical is kind of stable for a period of time. We all anticipate maybe it's going to go up now, but if it's stable, do we lose?
You're not going to lose, but the savings may be less than is shown here. And in year 1, the delta, the difference between the savings and the payments is about $13,000. So if the rate was flat for electricity for the next 5 years, then instead of saving $40,000 in year 5, you might save $13 to $15, maybe $20,000. So there's always that possibility. I mean, that is, in that case, the worst case scenario is that you'd be saving less money, but you would have invested in a solar garden and would help to facilitate solar, and you'd be producing electricity, clean electricity with no emissions at that point. But granted, it is a risk. And it's a very, very, very small risk, but it is out there.
Can I just
Yes, sir.
So Bruce and whoever else is looking at that, the PPA, that is actually what we would be paying at, the 10.8. So the electrical charge from Xcel would have to be below that for us to lose money.
Correct.
So electricity would actually have to drop or would lose money.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The PPA rate though, from now to when the solar garden's developed or whatever, will that change? Because there's,
No.
I had one company surprisingly stop in at the shop, and they're talking about this, and and they've got rates and all this, and it's like, well, this is a possibility, by the time it gets implemented, and different issues coming down the pipeline, this could change. So is this letter of intent at that 10.8, is that guaranteed?
That is guaranteed, absolutely. Yes, it's the rate is set with Excel for the bill credits at 11.46 cents. That's not going to get any lower. So that is locked in right now. So transitioning, there is a letter of intent that we have supplied to the district. If the district would want to move forward, then what the letter of intent would mean is that we would place you into several gardens, and then as the developer, we would actually make an application into Excel, and for each 1 megawatt solar garden, we need to make a $100,000 deposit to get approval from Excel. So when we get letters of intent, we group school districts together. That allows us to have some assurance that we're going to have subscribers for the garden. Then we'll make that application to Excel, and once Excel gives the go-ahead, then we will start building the array at that point. And then there would be a subscriber agreement, which we would put in front of you to sign, and that would be the 25-year contract at that point. Signing the letter of intent also would be allow us to have exclusivity with the district for 365 days. So that gives us a year to build the array at that point. And if we would sign a subscriber agreement between now and between when the array gets built, then obviously that would supersede the letter of intent.
So after that time frame, if the array is not built,
Then you are free to pursue other developers at that point.
if we so choose.
Yeah. Now, I will tell you that if 6 months goes down and we've been turned down flat from Excel, and we don't have any chance of building the array and another developer does, I'm not going to hold you to that. We will release you for that. I am on camera and I'm on record saying that. So we fully intend on building this, but we haven't built our reputation by being difficult with our customers. So,
but the chances are, if you can't do it, if you can't get approval, then other people would have the same issues that you would have.
that's correct. And our strategy is, these are supposed to be community solar gardens. You may have seen some of the press out there where another company signed Ecolab to a 200 megawatt subscription. That doesn't do anybody any good because they need to have partners out there. And our strategy is to build smaller solar gardens so they're co-located anywhere from 3 to 5 megawatts. Anything over 10 megawatts, which I know some developers are out there talking about, are going to flat get turned down and they will not get approval. So we're trying to do our best and have already actually gotten land leases so that we have projects that are ready to go. But we're going to use our best judgment to have the best shot of developing these by keeping the gardens small enough. The issue is if you get over a 10 megawatt solar garden, you could overstress the electric grid, and then Excel's just going to turn you down and say you can't do it. So we think in that 3 to 5 megawatt ballpark where this is going to be a really nice window for us, and we're not going to have any problem getting approval.
If you approach like the city of Paynesville and other users locally to join this, or is it you're just going to concentrate on schools?
No, we're actually, last night I made a presentation to the city of Holding Ford. They corrected me several times, Holding Ford. And we are absolutely open to talking to municipalities, counties, so we just haven't got that far yet. We've been concentrating on school districts, but because it is community solar garden, cities would be a wonderful partner to bring on board small businesses in the area and residential customers as well.
So if we wanted to get people in the community involved, such as the city and other things, would we need to drive that, or do you? Who drives the meetings to make the presentation?
If you make the introduction, I will do the rest of it.
Okay. So we just need to tell people what's up, and you're looking for, when you're talking about private business joining, do you have a kilowatt usage they're supposed to have?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's going to take a mix of different businesses. So if it's a small business, that would work. And if it's a larger business, What we kind of want to avoid is the very, very, very large users, because we think that's going to put us on the wrong side of the community and community solar gardens. And it's going to be hard to team up a huge user with a bunch of smaller users. So the school district here is a great example, because we're at about 2 million kilowatt hours, and that easily allows us to fit you with other school districts, which have, you know, similar usages as well.
But what if, for example, the city, which would be a big user, said, well, we'll just limit the amount that they take?
That's
They
a
can still do
possibility
that,
as well.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to clarify, it costs $100,000 to put in this application for solar garden. And you mentioned that we would have to come up with that $100,000.
No,
But that would not be us. We have no initial outlay. I wanted the public to know that.
That is correct. There is no upfront cost that is paid by the developer, us, and New Energy Equity in this case. We are coming up with that money.
So if we sign a letter of intent, and we say that in some worst case scenario happens, we say we need to back out of that, what does that mean?
It means that you tell us that you want to back out, and we have a bunch of subscribers, so we're not going to have any problem fitting somebody else into those gardens. We want this to be a positive experience for the school district, for the community, and we think it's a win-win-win for everybody. So I think it's, once you really look at the economics, you're going to be very happy with this, and are going to want to be a part of it. But there are extenuating circumstances, and you know, we're not going to litigate you to make you part of the garden. That's not going to benefit anybody.
So we had some of the committee members, some we got together. You guys see any, I'm not seeing any downside to this. Does anybody else?
No.
No.
I don't see that we have a risk. What we do have is the potential of some savings.
Right.
And that isn't going to hurt our budgets at all.
And again, the one risk is if electricity dropped down below that 10.8. That would be the one risk if it dropped down.
That is correct. 5 years ago, natural gas was about $1.50 a therm. The price dropped in half, and you'd think the price of electricity would drop with that. Well, it didn't, and Excel just went that sort of 8% increase. So even when the fuel source becomes less expensive, we have not seen that price in electricity follow the fuel source decline. So we think that that's going to continue to increase.
So at some point, if another outfit came towards us, to us, and said, hey, we are approved by Excel, and you are not approved yet, and their rate's the same, and you want to say, okay, we don't know if you're going to be approved, is it possible for us to change without any problems with this letter of intent?
Yes, I would hope that you give us enough time to do our due diligence, and so that this conversation doesn't happen next week. But yes, I mean, if it's 6 months down the road and we don't have any, if we don't have any headway with Excel, then yes, that's not a problem.
How quick are they looking at making this process go with their deciding?
There's the $64 million question. We make the application to Excel, and how quickly they move is beyond our control to really dictate that to them. But we are hoping that we are estimating, I should say, that within 90 to 120 days of making that application, that we'll get approval for our various sites.
And I think one of the hopes that you have also is the size of our gardens, that they may be easier to get approval than
That's
some of the
correct.
larger ones.
Yeah, that's correct. We're not going to make 10 megawatts of applications, because they'll get turned down right away.
Any other discussion?
The only other thing I would add to it is that there is a possibility for enhancements for some of our classroom experiences with this. You know, we had conversations with you regarding that also, that in the future, if there's field trips or a class that's looking at solar energy, that we can go ahead and have those classes or have resources with you guys on educational offerings.
Absolutely. That's been one of the biggest benefits that we've seen for installing systems at schools, is it's tied very nicely with the science curriculum. All of the solar gardens will come with online data loggers so that the school district and the science classes can see exactly what the system is producing. And it comes with a weather station so that you can do correlations between the amount of sunlight and the amount of power that you get. So it's a great tool for teaching.
And as we look to, there is a Minnesota incentive for smaller gardens. Those are the ones that they're putting up on the roofs of schools right now. I can't say I'm excited to put anything up on the roof of our schools as we go down roofing projects, but we do have a couple areas that might be able to put something in also that isn't on the roof of a building. So I think that's something also, you have to apply for that, but that's something else we could look into that would allow us to have something right on our grounds that could be used for that.
When you left last time, you said you were looking at some land. Was it close to Paynesville or where?
We've got land in Wright County right now that we have a letter of intent signed and executed. We are looking at land in Stearns County, Wright County, Sherburne County, have offers out there and are expecting to get those leases signed within the next couple weeks here. So with that said, if the city or the school district has any land that could be an additional revenue stream, because we would be interested in leasing land from third parties, and that's how we're doing this. We're not buying land, we're leasing the land.
How much land do you need?
Basically, it's about 5 to 6 acres per megawatt. So for a 3 megawatt solar garden, it would be 15 to 20 acres. And for a 5 megawatt solar garden, it would be 25 to 30 acres. And our initial offer is $850 per acre per year. So for a 20 acre plot, that would be about $215,000 over 20 years, something like that. I'm doing that off the top of my head, so my math's gonna be off. So $850 per acre per year.
Do you have certain criteria for this land?
Needs to be near 3-phase power.
So for us, that would be near the industrial park, I presume. Do we have 3-phase here? Right? Do we have 3-phase power here?
Yes.
You have to have a place to go into the grid though, correct?
That's correct, and this is not required. This is just something additional that we can talk about as well. But we are always looking for land, so if the district had some, then we would be very interested in taking a look at it.
Are there rules for surrounding area? Like, you've got 15 acres, do you have to have something around it of certain sorts? Obviously, probably not as much of a home.
It depends on the zoning for that particular region. So it would really have to depend on if it's in the city proper and what the zoning ordinances are. We put a fence up around the array. But other than that, are there setbacks? Yes, we're not going to want to be right up against the road. We'd want to be back a certain amount of feet, but I'd have to take a look at the piece of land in order to tell you exactly how that would work.
So, any other questions on the presentation? If there's no more questions, then let's go to number 2. Well, we have the public. Did the public got any comments on this? And we're really interested. Anybody got any comments?
I was just curious if you maintain everything? Do you fix it if it breaks or?
That's a great question. The question was, do we maintain the system? WGL, who's the third-party owner, would hire us, Innovative Power Systems, to do the operations and maintenance on the system. So the district would not be responsible for any of the operations or maintenance on the system, and we would be contracted to do that. So that's why it's valuable to have us, the local boots on the ground, to do that. And WGL is not going to fly out here to do that. So yes, we will be maintaining the system for 25 years.
Do you also maintain the land that it's on, or is that the landowner's responsibility?
That is our responsibility under the lease. Yes.
Can you allude to what happens after 25 years?
So after 25 years, there would be several options. The PPA, the power purchase agreement, could be renewed. It could be canceled. Or for the landowner's perspective, the system could be removed by the third-party owner, the lease could be renewed, or the system could just be turned over to the landowner at that point at basically no charge. So that could be a potential benefit to the landowner after 25 years. Yes, you're getting a 25-year-old system, but the panels have a 25-year warranty, and we expect 30 to 40 years of useful life out of the system.
And if the array goes down at any time and it's not generating power?
Then it's up to us to get it back on as quickly as possible, and trust me, they will be on us to do that. So, and the system would be designed with, so it's modular enough to that, so that if one of the inverters we would use for a megawatt, for example, we would use 20, 50 kilowatt inverters, and if one of the inverters goes down, then 5% of the array goes down, not the entire thing. So it's modular enough to where not the entire thing's not going to go down at any given time, other than if there was a catastrophic event. But it's very modular so that we're getting most of the production most of the time. It's not going to be like a wind farm where half the turbines are down at any certain point.
But I'm assuming if a natural catastrophe took take like a tornado and it wiped out the garden, we would just go back then, I'm assuming, to pay Excel the regular rate then.
At that point, there would be no bill credits because there would be no production, and there would be no bill payments because there's no production.
Can you explain a little bit what happens, like, when it snows out? I think there are probably a lot of people, viewers would like to know when it snows out, it's on top of the arrays or whatever, what, can you produce the energy still at that point, or?
Generally, no. It is to be determined whether WGL would pay us to come take the snow off the panels or not. It really depends, and currently the systems that we have on top of the schools, we are not clearing snow right now. It's Minnesota, we get snow. This winter was a good winter, we didn't have much snow, but the prior 2 years were not good because we had a ton of snow. So basically you gotta let nature take care of it and let the sun come out and melt the snow off the panels. I saw a couple of arrays in Boston this winter that were 8 feet tall and completely covered in snow. I mean, there's just not much you can do about it at that point. So it's you just get what you get, and I never tell my clients that snow is going to, that snow won't affect their array. I mean, snow will affect it. It's Minnesota, right? That would be disingenuous if I said snow's not going to affect your array, but it really just depends on the winter that we have.
So when the snow comes and it's not producing, then we would go back to paying Excel, or is this?
There would be, at that point, no production, so there would be no bill credits, and there would be no production, so there would be no payments to
So if we have a
third-party
big
investor.
snowy winter, we wouldn't get that potential annual savings if it worked out.
Yeah, and the numbers that I've presented are based on average weather, and they're actually kind of conservative, so I would actually expect there to be a little better production than what we have on there. But yeah, that's an average weather year in Minnesota. That's not based on Arizona weather, that's based on Minnesota weather, central Minnesota weather, actually.
Any more questions? Anybody? Okay, then let's move to item number 2. Review and consider approval of signing a letter of intent with New Energy Equity to move forward with the community solar garden. So,
Just one question. This letter of intent, if we sign it and we don't go through with it, or you don't go through with it, it costs us nothing, right?
That is correct. There is no risk to signing the letter of intent. That is correct.
And Matt, we're gonna archive this tape forever. Next
Okay.
25 years?
Hold me to it.
26 years.
Yeah, 26 years.
Hold me to it. We've built about 20 projects for schools over the past 2 years with pretty much this model right here. Not one of the schools had to pay a dime until the system was producing power.
okay. Any other? Do we,
I'll make a motion to approve, or to go ahead and purchase of the,
We
sign
have-
the purchase agreement.
we have a motion from Mark to sign the letter
There you
of
go, letter of
intent.
intent.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
A second by Cheryl. Any further discussion?
Would it be all right with the board? I mean, you can have to choose either the board chair or myself to sign. It doesn't make any difference. We can decide that.
Doesn't make any difference.
Okay. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passed. Okay. Do you need anything from us before you go, or we get to you later? Or do you want to stay for the whole rest of the meeting?
Okay, we just scan it, send it to you, sign it, and scan it.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Shane.
Okay.
Mr. Wilkie, do you have all of your people here?
Yeah, well, we'll do two of us at the moment.
Okay.
As you said, we're very active kids.
We have Mr. Wilkie and students will present information concerning their trip to Germany. Are we going to use the screen behind us?
Is it okay if he wants to set up a PowerPoint presentation?
I will get all of this
Yeah. Should we
with.
move around? I think is that okay with everybody?
Basic stuff before we start the presentation, if that's okay. Well, first I want to start by saying thank you to the board for allowing me to take a group of students. We had 12 students this year go on the German trip. We also had 2 parents go with us on this trip as well. So we had a group of 15 going to Germany this year. And we actually went to 4 countries in 12 days. So in fact, in one day, we went to 4 countries all in one. So that was kind of neat. Jacob Dahl here, who's setting up the computer, was one of our kids that went with us. He had some very, very nice experience across the way. The weather was okay. It's cold, but we did get to see a lot of good stuff at that time. So Jacob is in my German 3 class this year, and he is going to be giving a presentation, a walkthrough with a PowerPoint presentation, and talking about some of the slides and some of the things that we got to see on the German trip. And Jacob, did you want me to take control? You got it? Thank you.
Yeah, I just got to sign up.
All right. Then you can come by me. So.
And you can sign me out. I don't need to get it tonight.
Or you can pull that microphone right there.
That might work better. And as he's going through the presentation, I'll interject some things as well. It's going to be a dual presentation.
We left on March 19th, right?
Correct.
We arrived the 20th, or was it the 19th when we arrived?
We arrived on the
microphone a little
20th.
closer to you. Put it right on top of that blue paper.
We arrived on the 20th in Frankfurt. We left at 5:40 the 19th and got there at about 5:40 in Frankfurt, and we stayed up the whole day. And we're waiting for the extra group from Indiana to arrive, so we went through the main city. And then
Yes, there were 2 schools from Indiana that joined us as a large group. So we had about 40 in the group as a whole within our thing. Sorry about that, Jade.
The city of Frankfurt is kind of like the between ground between the modern and, like, there's some areas that look like this, but usually it's just skyscrapers in a lot of areas with airports and stuff. And after the group got with us, we went to the next town, and that was only about an hour or 2 away, and it's Rothenburg. And the city still looks like how it used to in the 18th century, since they suffered from an incredible debt, so they couldn't renovate or build new buildings. So they still have the old city wall and like a fortress, and then this also has a kind of a glockenspiel, or like a clock that every now and then has like an animation move, and it's a guy drinking a big drink of ale.
There's a little story behind that. When Tilly invaded the city, basically the mayor was able to get him to agree to not burn the city to the ground if he would drink a 3-liter draught of wine. So he did it, saved the city, and so they made a clock and helped him stay alive. So it's kind of a unique thing. So yeah, one of the things we didn't get to when we were there was the torture museum. Unfortunately, it was closed, so we got in a little bit late.
That was pretty much the end of the day after we visited Rosenberg, and we visited a small town for the stay for the night, and there wasn't much to it other than it had some old city walls and a church. The next day we went to Munich, and that was about 2 hours away from Rosenberg, 2 to 3. And this is a picture of the town hall, the old town hall, and there's one of the biggest churches in Munich in the background. And what's unique about Munich, in the city center, it's illegal to build anything taller than the churches.
Jacob, can you put the microphone by you, please?
So you
We
don't
can't hear
see
you.
skyscrapers.
Well, they're pretty close.
You have to, you need to get up to the
Get
microphone.
closer there, Jacob.
Keep going.
This is one of the largest glockenspiels in the world, and it's right here. There's at 5 o'clock, and then I don't remember the other time, they have knights spinning around on like a spinster, and then some other people. And when we were there, there was a vegan festival kind of protesting for animal rights and stuff. And Munich is the city, or over the course we were in Munich, we learned about how Munich was the center where the Nazis began, and just 2 blocks from here was where Hitler led his first revolution against the government, and it failed. And there's also this huge grand palace that a man built for his wife as a gift, and it was over probably like 20 acres.
Nymphenburg House, yeah, about 20 acres. It's a big building, and it's built like the Palace of Versailles. So if any of you are familiar with Versailles and what that palace looks like, very similar to it.
And when we were at Munich, we went to Dachau concentration camp, and this is how big the camp was. There were 17 different buildings to house the Jews there, and the walls were kind of crazy. And we visited, it was kind of bad like this. It was pretty, like...
It was a cold day, yeah, very cold, rainy, it fit the atmosphere for sure, so.
Yeah. And after Dachau, we went back to Munich and explored the city a little more. And we went to the Hofbräuhaus, which is like a traditional style Bavarian restaurant. So it had like the...
How did you get from one place to the other? Train or bus?
We had a bus.
Yeah, I have done in the past where we took a train out to Dachau. That was a number of years ago with a smaller group too. With the larger groups, it's easier to take buses from place to place. So.
And then one of the days in Munich, we went to Salzburg, which is in Austria. And you don't need to go through really any border crossing when you go to Austria. You just pretty much can go right through. And this is one of the biggest, or like the biggest churches in Salzburg. And this is what the fortress looks like. And this is just basically right over here. That's the view of the castle. And in Salzburg, it's where the Sound of Music was filmed, or they made it seem where it was filmed. And yeah, and it made its money off salt, which was basically gold at the time. That's how much it was worth. And, yeah, and they were ruled by priests and archbishops. So that's why they spent a lot of money on the church and the castle, because they didn't fight, they wanted to defend themselves.
And there are a number, actually in Salzburg there's a number of churches, there's about 7 or 8 churches. They have a big cathedral, the one that he's got the picture of there is the one in The Sound of Music where they were married, so to speak. But there were a number of monasteries, etc. in that city as well.
What's the gold ball in the square there?
It's just a sculpture, and this is a statue on top of it. We thought it was a person at first.
Yeah, it just kind of looks like.
Yeah, they have a little, it's kind of an area where they have a sculpture garden, and you can barely make it out, but that's a pretty large chessboard that people are playing into. So, and it's just a gathering spot in the city that they use.
After Munich, we went to Neuschwanstein, and I didn't really have any good pictures of what the castle looked like, so I grabbed one onto the internet.
And I'm going to stop you there because we actually did go somewhere else before that.
Did we go to, where did we go to?
We went to the salt mines.
Salt mines? Oh yeah, I did.
So yeah, and that's okay, you don't have pictures of that, but we went to one of the salt mines around Salzburg that particular day as well, and the kids were learned a little bit about the process of salt mining current day as well as historical things, and learned a little bit about the value of salt over time.
So. A thing about Neuschwanstein, it was built in the late 1800s, around 1880. And King Ludwig, it's not a finished castle, about like 1/3 of it's finished. And there's a lot of mystery surrounding why he died. And there's a lot of conspiracy about that. And he spent a lot of money on castles and didn't care about his government really in his country. He just wanted to be in a fairy tale. And after Neuschwanstein, we kind of went on a road trip all the way to Lucerne, which was like a 6-hour to 8-hour trip. And Lucerne's known for the Lions Monument. And the Lions Monument is a monument to the Swiss Guard who protected the Pope when the Vatican City was attacked and all of the Swiss Guard died. Wasn't it? Or no, it was the Swiss Guard for the French Revolution.
Right, French Revolution is correct.
Messed up over there. And almost all of the Swiss Guard died trying to protect the royalty. And this is the longest and one of the oldest bridges in the world in Lucerne. And part of it was
wooden bridges.
Wooden bridges.
That, yeah. So.
Wooden bridges. And it was burned at one point, and they have murals inside of it of like events of the city.
Right, which time, yeah, it generally on the inside, on the rafters of the bridge, would be main events that happened throughout the city as you went through. In 1993, the bridge burned, and there's only about 25 to 30 of those paintings that are left. But you still get a pretty good idea of that. And that bridge was constructed originally around the 900s, so fairly old.
When we're still in Lucerne, this is pretty close. It's only like there's a lake, and it's called the Four City Lake, and that's what it translates to in German. And Lucerne is based around that, and there's just a city just beyond Lucerne, and you can get to Mount Rigi from that. And it's the tallest one we could go to in Lucerne.
That day, because Pilatus was closed. That was where we were supposed to go initially. They were in the process of doing construction on the gondola, I think, there, so we weren't able to go. So we went to Rigi instead, and this one's got the oldest cod rail train, which is what we took up to that particular point. Yeah, the view from up there, pretty stunning. It was amazing because we were going up there and the weather wasn't cooperating, and then it just kind of opened up just enough so that you can get enough of an idea of what it's like up there. The difference, I think, with Rigi versus Pilatus, and unfortunately for this group, they didn't get to see Pilatus, and I have. Pilatus, you get to see a lot more of the mountain peaks, the hundreds of mountain peaks that are in that mountain range. Whereas here, the nice thing about this is that you do have that mountain range view a little bit there, but then you also had the view of down below in the valley of the lake and stuff like that. So there were different things of value to each of these points.
After Lucerne, we didn't do anything after the mountain. Pretty much, we just had some free time in the city. And we left Lucerne the next day, and on our way to Heidelberg, we visited the Rhine Falls, this is where the start of the navigatable Rhine begins. And there's tons of, it's a type of carp, I think, that go here and they don't know what to do since they can't travel farther upstream. And that was pretty much it at Rhine Falls. We only stopped there for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, enough to make a photo shoot. And we think might make the paper. I think that would be one of the pictures for the paper. So, yeah, the Rhine Falls, yeah, absolutely. This is where longest river in Germany. It flows. It's one of the odd ones that flows from the south to the north. But it's also a lot of barge traffic throughout that. But this is the start of it, and we're still in Switzerland at this particular point.
And after the Rhine Falls, we visited Freiburg, which is where you get the cuckoo clocks, and there's tons of them. And this is the biggest one in the world, cuckoo clock, and we only stopped there for like an hour or so.
We got, and on our stop there, because our bus drivers have so many hours that they could drive, and we have to take stops at certain spots. But one of the unique things that the kids were able to do at this one is that they were actually able to see how clocks were made back then to how they're done now as well. So they were giving us a short presentation on that, and then we just had lunch here.
And then like our final stop that day was Heidelberg, and this is the most prominent part of Heidelberg. Is the old palace there, and it was partially destroyed due to, was it a gunpowder or what was it?
They had a couple different things that destroyed that castle. Unfortunately, the war was one, and then also a lightning strike into one of the powder towers. And so on the, if you look at the right-hand side of the lower picture, other side, there we go, yeah. Down there you can kind of see that. That's kind of how it fell off. It actually blew off and then came down to a part of it. It's considered a romantic city, Heidelberg is. I tell the kids we go there because I was born there, but you know, that's not really the case. Which is true, I was born there. But it is kind of a unique place to kind of go, and they can kind of see a little bit of the ruins of a functional castle as well. The nice thing about Salzburg is that it was an intact castle, never conquered. So they got to actually go to the top of that castle. And this one, they can kind of see what happened to a lot of the castles along the Rhine River. Because there are literally, I would say, when I used to live there, I would see a castle a day, and there's probably within a 30-mile radius of that castle, there's another 30 or 40 castles up and down the river. So, a very unique, a very neat place to go and view in Germany.
After Heidelberg, that's when the people from the Indiana left us, right?
Correct.
And they took a train back to Frankfurt, and we stayed an extra 2 to 3 days in Ulm. And Ulm's most prominent thing is that they have the tallest cathedral in the world.
Tallest church. The cathedral, the tallest cathedral is considered in Cologne, so yeah, you gotta watch who you talk to about that one. They like to boast about their thing. Yeah, currently they're the tallest church spire. Barcelona, when that gets done, is supposed to be taller.
And we just had like an exchange, so a lot of us went back with the students that we hosted in September, and we visited. Some of us visited the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart and watched the soccer game and some other stuff.
Tell them what you did.
Yeah.
That's very unique. I've never seen anything like this happen. So,
my exchange student's dad was he's a heart surgeon, and so his colleagues were working on a person about 5 minutes. Like I was there for like 2 hours or 3 hours, and then he said, "Hey, do you want to go to open heart surgery?" And I was like, "Sure," pretty much, like just like randomly. And I was about like, if I was sitting here, the patient was, they were operating that far away at the computer, and I got to go in an actual operational room and watch more. So
yeah, and the nice thing about the exchange is that the kids generally do a lot of different types of things that are very unique. Like, I mean, that's very unique there. But, and yeah, there's, if you talk to each of the individual kids, each one of them did something a little different from the others. And that's been since Mr. Karsten started that program, it's been a very successful program on both ends. I think both communities get a lot of value from the kids coming here in the fall and then us returning to visit.
And once this is the end, but after Ulm, we went to Frankfurt and did really not much when we went there. We just went to a hotel at 8, and then the next day we went to there and left. And that was kind of crappy since we went through like 15 hours of flying due to delays and stuff.
But we made it here. So we were the last day was kind of concerning because we have a 2.5-hour layover in Chicago, and we were sitting on that tarmac for 2 hours because of the wind. They had shut down one of the runways, and so they were only letting one runway of planes go out, so we had to wait 2 hours. And we were lucky we got into Chicago, and they're like, we're going to hold the plane for you guys. So I didn't have to worry about doing any overnights in Chicago or anything like that. So not like I've done in previous years where we had to do an overnight in New York one year, and we missed the train that 1 year too, so that was kind of interesting. So, but this year, no major mishaps, and the kids seem to enjoy it. At least, well, what I've heard, the parents that went seem to really enjoy themselves on it. And I know I just appreciate the school district values a trip like this, because I think it is a valuable educational tool for the kids when they go overseas. So we can open it up for questions from anybody here that has questions at this point in time, if you want.
It's a business item, so up to all the public too, so anybody got any questions?
I'll share a little bit. My husband, John, went with us, one of the chaperones, and he said he was very impressed with the kids. He was very impressed with the whole experience. The kids were very respectful, and again, he just talked highly of how you took care of the program and the trip. So it was very, very good, and he was happy that he could go along and experience it with the kids.
It was fun having the parents there, so it was really neat to see how everybody interacted and stuff. So overall, really good trip. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, and feel free to try I've got gummy bears and stuff from Germany. Please don't feel free to take that. Thank you. Great, thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda we have number 4, review and consider approval of granting the roof project bid to, how's that pronounced? Lazy Roofing.
We did take a look at it. You have the information, the bids on there, bidding information. I can find where I put my sheets. The first part just talks about the main bids themselves, and then there were some unit prices that was for installation, for instance, and for repairs. So if you go down the first part, where number 1, you look at the $224,900 base bid, and then we had some secondary bids, but we just accepted the main bid. In the end, we just felt like our alternatives just weren't worth the price. So what we're really getting is a replacement of the roof, just like we had talked about. and some dollars in there for repair. And there's also a contingency fee or amount that we also put off to the side for the projects. In the end, this was the bid that we think we should award to, and that's what I'm bringing forward to the board at this point. In the end, it'll be the cost of the total contract is $326,450. Our roofing budget was $355,000, and we had a contingency of $16,322 because again, we're going to tear off the roof and we don't know exactly what we're going to find under there. Certainly, there's dollars in there for replacing the insulation, but we don't know how much we're going to run into, and there's dollars in there to repair some of the roof areas, the other roof areas that we had talked about to extend their length. So if everything worked out the way that we thought it would, we'd still have about $12,227 left out of the $355,000. So, you know, it's hard to say how that'll shake out as we do, but we think we're in good grounds with that, and that's the bid that we're recommending. One of the other bids was about $3,402 more. That was the closest next bid to it. But when we did the bid opening, our architect was very happy with all three companies that bid it. So I think that no matter which one of them would have gotten the bid, we didn't have to worry about not having the job done right. So we're extremely happy with that. And we're happy kind of within our range that we wanted.
So we have the bid, it's within budget, what we anticipated. Any discussion amongst the board?
I mean, the bids are hard to look at, and really the architect did an evaluation of this, because if you take a look through this, there's high and low parts for virtually every one of them. So we really had to look at and estimate what we thought we would have to repair, what we have to do for the installation in comparison to the base bid.
Where is this company based on?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have they done work for us before?
I don't think they have done work for us, no. But I do know that they have a good reputation, in that I believe they've done some work for their architects. So they were aware of them.
On their website, they had done a whole bunch of stuff for Central Care, a bunch of the schools around St. Cloud.
And this ended up strictly just, the price was the determining factor.
Okay, to entertain a motion to approve.
No move.
A motion by Lou to approve granting the roof project to Bicey Roofing, did I got it that time? Do we have a second?
I'll make a second.
We have a second from Mark. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Do we have any comments from the public on the roofing bid? Okay. Now we have Future Farmers of America chapter and Future Farmers of America alumni will present information and payment for electrical costs and the well project. And actually, the three of you are there. If you want to grab the microphone, I think it'll slide right down to you. That'll work.
Hello, I'm Ken Litch, outgoing president of Paynesville FFA alumni. So I'd like to introduce Ken Lai as the new president. So I guess you'll have to deal with him for the next 3 years.
Hi, I'm Kenny Lai. This is Andy Lensmeyer from the FFA too. Last day this year, the weather didn't cooperate too well. It's kind of a, not one of our better days. But the highlights we had this year was the John Deere moisture monitor. We didn't have to go by the ground surface to see when we need to irrigate. The computer told us when we need to. It saved us a lot of time this year. Another thing we had there this year were the drones, and the kids were really interested in the drones. This year we did have on the well, we did have lightning hit the box, so we had to replace the electrical box. we're working on a gate trailer right now for the FFA, and we brought some pictures along, if you want to.
The gate trailer was, the design, everything was part of what I was taking care of. Andy came up with the design, and it took a few years now, and we finally got it the way we liked it. I think it turned out really well. It'll be a real asset to Paynesville area schools.
That'll have all the gates and waters and feeders and everything in there for when the kids have baby animal days and those things. So they got everything all in one spot instead of parents having to drag stuff here, drag stuff there, and so it should help us. Also, we just were presented with the Outstanding FFA Alumni Affiliate Award this year. I don't know if you guys saw that. I'm going to show them that. So other than that, we got 2 checks. We got the one for the electricity for the well and the light, and then we got our well payment check. So, does anybody have any questions?
You were talking a droid, what are the?
A drone?
Drone, yeah, what does that do, what is that?
It's like a mini airplane or whatever, and it flies around and it scouts the fields and sends out information and stuff as to, you know, wind pressure, whatever you wanted to do. You want to explain a little more, Andy?
What they had was from Nez Consulting, which is the guys, or the group of guys that took over for Ted McCarthy at Pioneer. They did a presentation on it. Basically what it works is he's got it basically set up on his iPad. He throws it, it goes and flies over the field. It's navigationally guided, and so it flies over every, I believe, 60 feet. It's up about 250 feet, and it takes a map. It takes a bunch of pictures and formulates a map, so they can see if in certain parts of the field, if it's, you know, kind of shorter and stuff, and they can see a lot of weeds, they can tell Cenex or so that, all right, this is a weed spot, we need you to get out there and spray it, and then go out there and spray it. It helps a lot with when the corn gets taller and stuff, and when you can't get out there to look at it yourself, and does a lot and more accurate. Just like with soil probe, the John Deere Moisture soil probe, I had a brother that was actually taking care of it, Stephen Lensmeyer from Midwest Machinery, so I kind of got a lot more insight on it. It's a very new thing that's coming out with. John Deere doesn't really let people buy it, really. It's more so that the Midwest will lease it to people. So what it does is it calculates, it's got sensors at different depths on it, and it says if there's moisture there and how much moisture is in the soil. So it's about 3 feet long, and it's this long probe that sits in there, and it'll tell you, give you a printout on a computer about what days where the moisture was and what the moisture levels were at. So when we were irrigating this summer, we could watch it was kind of like a line graph, and when we irrigate it, do a little bump, so we can see where we were at, and if the rain would go up or down, we can see how much we needed to irrigate, when we needed to irrigate. It's getting pushed a lot in the agriculture industry. Like in here about Bonanza Valley, about with the water dropping and stuff. They're pushing this a lot out there because this way you can monitor when you need to irrigate, and so you eliminate a lot of over irrigating and stuff like that. It's a very rare probe. We're very lucky to have it. There was, University of Minnesota has a couple, and some very select farmers have a couple. So it was very surprising for them to let us use something that is so rare and unavailable.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And the checks to you.
Oh, sure. Big enough for me to head for Mexico. No, we appreciate the FFA. You guys have run just an excellent program. I can't say how much I am impressed by what you and the Alumni Association and our FFA program do for our students.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You'll see if you want to see the see a trailer up close, they have a baby animal day coming up in Paynesville.
Yep.
Yeah, next Wednesday, I believe. So we have the elementary school.
Thank you for everything you guys do. Good job.
Thank you very much.
The design turned out very well.
Very nice looking.
Good.
You keep it at your farm then? You keep it at your farm then?
No.
Where do they keep that then?
Well, that's the question. It was kept in Cold Spring by one, and I just talked to him. He's picking it up for their baby animal day tomorrow. And Natalie had said something about storing it in the old armory building, so I don't know if there's room there for it, but that has to be worked out. But that was I was told.
We can certainly take a look at what our options are.
Yeah, and if nothing else, we will find some place to store it. It will not, with that design, it will not sit outside.
No, that's what I thought, I figured that it would.
So,
All right. Good job.
Thank you.
all right, thanks.
Next, we have,
Just if I could check on my, Kevin, are you okay with sticking for one more? Sure. Okay.
okay, discussion of possible reductions and adjustments in the 2015-16 budget and FTE time due to low numbers in financial aid.
Yeah, this is really going to be just a quick update on where we're at with the budget right now. At the next meeting, you'll get a complete list of what we're recommending, and we'll have much more discussion at this point. There are some staffing things that we're looking at, and we don't want to discuss anything like that until after we've made sure that we've notified anybody that it might affect. So at this particular point, when we started the school year at 6/30 of 14, our unencumbered balance was about 166,000. Okay, that's not a lot. Okay, at the end of this year, if our budget continues to go the way that we believe it will, our unencumbered balance should be about 373,000. So we're moving it in the right direction, and we do need to continue to do that. I wish I could say that we still have all the money that we need to buy whatever we want, and we simply don't. And most of the budget adjustments that we're making, I believe that we probably make them regardless of where we work. Part of it's because of less students, part of it's because of choice of students, part of it's because of changing the way that we're doing things. It'll be about $116,000 budget reduction that I'll be looking at for next year. The good news is that we are slowly getting to where we really need to be. So if we don't have major reductions in students, our budget reductions will start to dwindle. And they're certainly doing that this year. Part of the reason for that, and for my recommendations, partly will be because of the technology levy. We're also using that technology levy to help with some areas that we've been taking out of our general fund, both in our curriculum and in our staffing. So both of those things are, I believe, are going to help us continue to move forward as we get down the road for the referendum that we were blessed with by the community a few years ago. They passed it, and one of my goals is to get as far down the road as we possibly can, so that we don't have to go back to the people. I would love to make it so that everything works out so that we don't have to go back to the people until that referendum is out. And that's my goal as I continue to look at budgets. We did talk, Max and I did talk about the possibility of revenue possibilities, but really right now for what we're doing, we're kind of in the middle of the pack for what we charge. At least for next year, we think we should stay in the middle of the pack. I know last year we talked about possibly raising fees. We're not going to recommend that, at least for our activities. We're not going to do that. There are two areas that I would love to find a little bit more money. I will be reluctant to do so until negotiations goes well on its way. One is in the area of staff development, which I have reduced since I've been here, and I would love to add some back because we do need that. And the other is the area of curriculum. We just simply can't buy everything that we would like to buy, and I know that some of the areas have not gotten as much as they have in the past. But again, until the budget is really set and we get further down the road on the negotiations, I will continue to be very conservative on how I'm going to handle this. So we're just starting that process. We end at the end of this year our current contracts with all our groups, and we will start back up this year to start talking with them. I don't think that will make a lot of movement in our budget as far as dollars. Both the other groups and myself will want to see where the state comes in. I'm not real thrilled right now where the state's coming in. They're talking about 1%, and that wouldn't cover our steps and lanes for 1 unit, let alone leave anything extra to increase dollars. We would be going backwards with a 1% increase. But the governor is set on that, and I think he's providing quite a bit of money for our students, but it's all very much earmarked for certain groups. So at the next meeting, I will bring more. Well, you'll get the information, and it'll be very specific about what I'm looking at reducing, and I'll give the explanation for that. Whether I ask for the board to vote on that resolution that night will kind of be depending. I think that the things that we're going to recommend are I think I can very much justify all of them. So I'm not too concerned about the board being confused or having a lengthy discussion. The good thing is that we do have turnarounds fairly quickly. Our next meeting is at the end of April, but then we turn around within, I think, a week. We have the next meeting in May. So I can work with it either way, so I'll be kind of at the, how the board feels at that point when things come out. So I just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on what's happening. The reductions will both be in our regular budget as far as budgetary items. One of those I can give because we talked about resource last year. We couldn't reduce it because they wouldn't let us out. I can tell you that one of our reductions will be resource. Okay, so that's kind of where they're at, but there are staffing reductions that we're looking at also. So just be aware that it's coming your way. I will get it to you. I will explain it. If you need time to digest it, there'll be time for that before we need to do what we need to do. But as I mentioned, I believe we will have solid reasons on why we're looking at doing what we're doing. Any questions for me?
It's a business item. Any questions of the public?
It will be back on the agenda next week.
Okay.
Next meeting.
Then number 7, Kevin from Tech will be at the meeting to present information on federal E-rate funding program. Is this something that you put up here? Okay.
We'll just talk this through hopefully. I'm Kevin Karagian, and I live in, I represent a company out of the St. Cloud Sartell area called TechCheck. And I personally worked with your district for just under 20 years. And so we've been a long partner with Paynesville schools and other schools in the area regarding technology and learning and education. And tonight I'm going to talk about a federal program that has changed dramatically over this last year called E-rate. Are you familiar with E-rate? It is a program administered by the Universal Service Access Corporation, if I'm thinking correctly of the acronym. But essentially what it is, on everyone's phone bill, cell phone, every piece of technology that you have communication, you will see a small tax called the USAC tax. And it's, on an average $80 phone bill, cell phone bill, it may be 45 cents. So it's essentially invisible. Well, this money gets collected from every consumer in the nation and gets put in this fund that helps schools and libraries across the nation fund technology. And what they've done with this program over the years is they divided it into 2 portions. We used to call it Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1 traditionally, and still is, they've renamed it now Category 1, but essentially it's designed to help fund the cost of bringing internet to your schools or libraries. And it is determined by a ratio of free and reduced lunch and a ruralness factor. And they kind of bring them all together, and the Paynesville area school falls underneath a discount rate of 70%, 70%. With that, and I don't know this number, and I guess I probably should have asked earlier, but if the internet, to bring internet to our schools, costs $10,000 a year, 70% of that is paid for by this tax that we all pay, and the district pays the rest of it. And if you're in a poorer area of the nation, inner cities, those ratios are 90, 95%, or sometimes you call it an immersed district, and it's 100% paid for. That's just the way it is. And so there's these two categories, Category 1 and Category 2, and they've redone Category 2, and that's what I'm here tonight to talk to you about. But Category 2 is called, it's designed for internal connections. And over the years, they've changed this, and it used to be for servers, and it used to be for some desktops, it used to be for this gadget, all technology. Well, this last year, the FCC kind of redid everything with this and threw an additional $3.5 billion into this fund. And they're going to spread this out all throughout the nation, $3.5 billion. Well, traditionally what has happened, as I mentioned, is that this money has fallen into the poorest of the poor districts. And districts like a Paynesville or a Belgrade or a Kimball got very little, if any, of that money because we had needs, but we never really got to that poorness factor. That's a terrible use of grammar, but you get what I'm saying. This last year they've redesigned this, and what they've done is they've made a determination that they are going to give every school district in the nation $150 per pupil unit on a one-time basis. So if my numbers are correct that I sat down with the tech committee and Bob with, we put in a number of 942 kids. Does that sound about right? We're right around there. Based on $150, the school district is going to essentially receive $141,000. Of that $141,000, we only see 70% of it. Okay, right? It's a 70-30 split. We're a 70% district. So in other words, we're going to have at our disposal about 90, just short of $100,000, about $99,000. Okay, that money needs to be spent sometime over the next 5 years. You can spend it all at once. You can defer it, so you spend $5,000 this year, $50,000 next year, $30,000 the year prior. It doesn't matter, but it has to be spent sometime in the next 5 years. The concerns of districts all over our state, and probably most likely all over the nation, is that the FCC is a political arm of the government. It's a Democratic state, and if it swaps, the program could change again in 2 more years. Everyone's fear is that, and I probably editorializing a little bit, but I don't think too much. Everyone's fear is that the schools that ask for this money right away are going to get it, and the schools that basically say is, let's save this money and use it down the road for something, they're going to change the program and we're going to lose again. Now, hopefully I'm not editorializing, but I think that's what everyone's fear is, because over the years, that's what seems to have happened. The funds have gone to the poorest of the poor districts. So over the last 4 or 5 months, we met with the technology committee a couple of times and talked about some of the needs that the district has from a technology perspective. And keep in mind that this money, this $141,000, that essentially with this Category 2 funding, it has to be used for a couple of different things. It has to be used for infrastructure inside of the school district, cabling, internet access to the classrooms. Oversimplifying, but those are the things it's designed for. So as we kind of sat down with Jim Decker and the rest of the tech committee, we started talking about where our needs are, what needs to be done, both in a short-term strategy and then over the 5-year period. And so one of the areas that we came up with, so everyone with me on the same page so far? One of the things that we had talked about is the piece of fiber that runs between this building and the elementary school. What is that, 3/4 of a mile? Roughly speaking, I suppose. A number of years ago, and I'm going to guess that this was done probably in the last 20-some years, would be my guess, is that a decision was made with the board, and I'm going to guess probably Howard at the time, of what type of fiber we wanted to put in the ground between here and the elementary school. And at the time, a decision was made to put in a piece of fiber called multi-mode fiber. And typically speaking, multi-mode fiber is a short-range fiber that's designed for inside a building. So it's designed to go from this room to the far end of this building. It's designed to go generally speaking less than 300 meters, okay? And with that 300 meters, you can get think there's a garden hose. So you can get 5-inch hose full of data going back and forth. Once I go beyond that 300 meters, that 5-inch hose drops down to about a 1-inch hose. You see where I'm getting at, right? So a decision was made a number of years ago to put multi-mode fiber in the ground. Why was that made? Well, the optics, and these are little, like a Wrigley's gum pack, right? Pull a 5-pack piece of gum that goes inside these switches that connect everything up. Those little gadgets on each end were probably around $25,000 if we put the right fiber in the ground. Well, you're talking $50,000. 10, 20 years ago, that was a ton of money. So the decision was made not to put the right fiber, which is fiber called single mode fiber in the ground. We put multi-mode in. And it has served the district well over the years. Our problem is as we become more and more mobile from a curricular standpoint, as we are looking to do things with video surveillance, unfortunately, and we're getting these 30 frames a second video of surveillance, what's going on when kids are bullied or whether there's fights or theft or vandalism. We are looking to pull all this data on our network. And that 1 gigabit connection, that multi-mode fiber that we have going from the elementary to the high school is not going to sustain that. With me so far? And so we start looking at, well, what is the replacement? Well, the replacement is to bury, to trench in essentially, the correct fiber that 3/4 of a mile. And that fiber is called single mode fiber, right? And currently we have a 1 gigabit connection, we have a 2 gigabit connection going between the high school and elementary school. And what this fiber gives us, that can give us up to 100 gigabit down the road. So we have tremendous upside with this fiber, but something needs to be done to bury this fiber. And Bob and I have talked about this, and I know Jim Decker and our company has talked about this for years, but that, finding money to do this was never an option. Well, all of a sudden this E-rate program comes around, and we start looking, saying, this is money that we really hadn't anticipated. The program changed. We're going to get a benefit from it. Is now the time to look at this one-time cost to bury this fiber to get this done. So there are just a handful of companies statewide that do this trenching. And the company that we've used and almost every school district uses is a company out of Foley called Starry Electric. And they specialize in outdoor burial fiber. They get all the right permits. They do all the right stuff with the city, states, and for crossing the highway and all these things to get things done so the land is, pristine when they're done and all those good things. We don't have any problems in the community. But we had them look at this about a year ago, and the cost to bury this fiber was right around $70,000. So, we looked at it, and Bob looked at it and said, we've got this, we passed our referendum, but that chews up everything, and it's just not going to fly. And correct me if I'm wrong at any point.
No, pretty accurate.
And, just not going to fly. We have too many other needs, et cetera, et cetera. Well, this program changes, and we come down and talk to the tech committee and basically say, this may be the time to start prioritizing. And before we start putting cameras everywhere, and before we do more wireless and become more mobile from a curricular standpoint, let's get a concrete cost on this fiber between the buildings. Well, the price came back, and we're looking right around, when all said and done, about $92,000 this year. So it is not going down in cost whatsoever. So, it's not an insignificant cost of money. Typically speaking, it would be nice to ride someone else's fiber, like the city. If there's fiber in the ground to facilitate this type of communication. Typically in our small towns, the city leases the fiber. And when they lease the fiber, there's a significant ongoing cost that is not a practical way to get this done. And you're talking a yearly budgeting to pay these fees. To give you an example, and I don't know the exact dollar amount, but Belgrade went from Belgrade to Bruton. There's a piece of fiber there. Who's the Consolidated? I don't know who the internet company, telephone company was, but they went from 100 to 1,000 the speed, and the price just about doubled to do that. So we start looking at leasing this to get what we need. It's just not a practical solution.
So what is the price?
So right now, we're looking at about...
if you did that, did what you just talked about.
Oh, if you hop on with the
What's
city?
the price of a lease? So we have a comparison.
That's not my specialty, I can't tell you that. I can tell you that even in a larger state like Fergus Falls, where there's a lot of fiber in the ground, the connection between the schools is the slowest thing in the world because you can't afford those ongoing costs to give us the speed that we need.
And we can certainly look at that down the road. The piece that we're looking at right now, we sent all the paperwork in. Okay, but there is a possibility, just as Kevin had talked about at the beginning, is that there's still a limited amount of dollars. So they'll start giving it to all those schools that are 95% or 100%. And then they start working their way down. Of course, if I have this much money, and as they work their way down, the amount of dollars disappears. So there is a possibility by the time they get to us, they'll look at us and say, God, we'd like to help you, but the money's not. So I think as we continue to plan this and as we continue to wait, and Kevin, I don't know how long it'll be before we get an answer from them.
Well, a slight correction. We will get that money.
So that's
it may not
sure
be, we will get that money at some point. It may not be this year, right? So they're going to fund the 95, the 90s, the 85, the 80s before they ever get to us. So they may run out of that. We may not see that money until next year. Or we may not see that money for 3 more years. We don't know. But what we did as a technology committee, we kind of agreed that let's go ahead and ask for this money. Let's at least apply for it and say we'd like to use it for fiber, we want to replace some switches, we want to do this, this, and this. Let's at least apply for it. If we don't get funded, well, we tried. We've got at least a plan to go forward. If we do get this funding, and I kind of am leaning towards we are going to get this money, we then can decide as a school board and a tech committee where we want that money to go. And just because we applied for $150,000 doesn't mean we're going to spend that. That's just saying, in an ideal scenario, here's a wish list what we want to accomplish, right? So, keep in mind that for every dollar that we spend, we need to come up with 30% of that. And we've always been cognizant of that. That it's easy to spend 100,000, but I need still to come up with 50. And that's kind of what we did as a technology committee. We kind of said, okay, what is this wish list? If we're going to get rid of, to upgrade our current infrastructure, so I've got the right connections to sustain some sort of a one-to-one learning in our classroom. That may not be for next year. That may be 2 years down the road. Some device that may look like this that has never been made yet. Maybe that device that's going to be in every student's hands. We know that's going to happen. The question is when. We just, this is an opportunity to make sure the infrastructure, the stuff that no one sees, is ready to go so we can sustain it. So that's kind of where we're at. At this stage of the game, we've asked for roughly $148,000 worth of funding requests. That's what we've asked for. $147,788, of which the federal program would pay for $103,000, which leaves us about $44,336. I'm rounding numbers. Again, if we get funded, we then can go back and say, well, when all said and done, we're not going to get this, but we'll take this instead. We've got that opportunity as a group for you folks to help decide that. But I thought it was important to say is there's this money there. We have some needs. This is the time to address them, at least, apply that money, which it can't be applied to desktops or laptops. It is very specific what it can be spent on.
So the danger is that if we don't get the money this year or next year, then, and there's a switch over in whatever, then it's possible that they can change the program and we wouldn't get the money. If we do get the money, the danger still is there if we don't use it within a couple of years.
The reality is that when the largest school district in the nation, which I think is Miami-Dade County Schools, are going to get, I think, $97 million, right? At one glance, one shot. If they ask for all that at one time, 3.5 billion doesn't go very far, right? You know, the problem is for a Miami-Dade County, for that type of school district, they still need to come up with 10% of it. And as the board knows, it's all proportional, right? You know, based on your tax base. You know, it would be my recommendation. I deal with 150 schools throughout the state. Ask for that money now, which we did, and then if we get funded, we have the opportunity then as a group to decide: is this priority number 1, number 2, number 3? And if that is the case, how do we come up with that $50,000, which we have a levy to at least kind of lean towards some of that?
And we do have one more meeting scheduled.
Say that again. The levy to lean
Well,
towards.
to lean towards, in other words, we could use some of the levy money, the technology levy money, to pay off the 30% if we wanted to go down that road. Now we
Does
have.
that rob something else?
Well, it's, you know, anytime.
And so, like, I guess I got a couple questions. One is if we have the technology committee, which I'm not on, but was this discussion happening during the time we were trying to lay out that levy?
No.
So it's all come up after the fact?
It's basically started in October of this year.
Okay.
We weren't aware of any of the changes that this occurred. And in fairness, we have talked about that technology levy. I think if we're going to change kind of any direction that we want, we certainly want to let the people know why we're doing it. I think that if that's where we had to get the money, I think that the community would understand that you're going to pay 30% for and get 70% free. But having said that, really the 5-year capital committee will talk about this also. I mean, if somebody came up to me and said, you know, you've got a reserve fund in your capital and you only have to pay 30% to get 100, you know, 30,000 to get 100,000. I might say, well, if this is really important, if this is something that we're going to look at doing and we're going to need in the future, there will be no better time to do that than now. So I think we have to look at this seriously regardless, because we're not going to get this many opportunities for this kind of a deal.
So if the deal doesn't come through, what are we going to do then?
Then we're back to where we were.
So do we set 5 years before we do it? If we can set 5 years before we do it, then my question is that we would take $27,600 on $92,000 and we're spending it. And I don't mean to bring it right to the board here, but we just got done talking about number 6.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, they're in different funds, but the taxpayer just pays one price to the county.
Right, but the reductions that I'm making so far, and I don't want to go back down that road very much. The reductions that have occurred, at least in my opinion, are reductions that we need to do and that I probably would bring to the board no matter what our financial situation is. Because in my opinion, it's what we need. We want to provide what we need, but that's where we draw a line. You know, what gets districts in trouble is when you start providing a ton of extra stuff that you can't afford.
But then that gets questionable as to what we can afford. And again, if we've talked about some of these CTEs, technical education things. We don't have any money for that. We don't have any money.
Okay,
but we were talking about 26.6.
When you start, right, Bruce, but when you start running this much data through that size of a pipeline, our technology needs will end. Because when this hits that pipeline, only so much can still go between these two buildings. Now we can look at the lease. I don't have any issues looking at anything else.
I would think we should look at all the possibilities, right, so we have some kind of...
And I agree, before we spend one nickel of it, we'll have the answers that you're looking for. But in the end, you're still going to have a problem with the data. And we're continuing adding things. We continue to pull information from that line that starts at the high school and into the elementary school. And our elementary teachers are continuing to use more and more of that information, all of that stuff. Again,
that's why we went out and asked for a technology levy.
Yep.
That's what this is for. We have not come yet to the board and say we're only funding this technology. We haven't really come out. We have this money. We still haven't decided exactly how we're going to use all of that money. That's what the technology committee is trying to put together a plan for that. this might be it. It's not gonna hinder any programming, it's not gonna hinder any jobs. This is technology, and that's what this is. That fiber is technology. So however you look at it and dice it up, that's technology. We need to get that. He's just given us another opportunity to get 70% of that paid for by somebody else. So if it's only gonna cost us $40,000 for a $140,000 venture, boy. But that's what that technology money is there for. It's not for somebody to use it for wages, for an example. That's what this technology is for.
Okay, I might have misunderstood. I thought when we set up a lot of the committees, we put together projections of where we were gonna spend the money, and that's how we came up with the amounts that we were asking.
We
And
did,
if this
but
$27,000 wasn't in there.
But at the same time, I would still say, Bruce, that if I went to the community and said, you know, we have this technology levy, we were gonna use it for this, but right now we'd like to change some of that direction because we're gonna get 70% of it paid for, I think the majority of the community would say, why would you not do that? Now, I don't know, and I'm sure that if we go down that direction, the community will let me know one way or another. But that's kind of where I'm at with this. Number one, we don't have the money yet. You know, this particular piece is to inform the board that we have this option. You're going to hear next week, or next meeting, kind of what I'm looking at for reductions, and my explanations on why I'm looking at making those reductions. Then it fits a little bit better when you say, well, okay, well, what are we gonna do with this technology piece? Because again, I would most likely make my suggestions regardless of where we were right now with that. So I think you have to get all that information before we can go down that road and say, this is or isn't a good idea. For me, all I know is that I can get 70% of something paid for. And I don't get that option very often. And that won't take away. I mean, your other piece is, okay, let's say we leave the fiber alone. We don't touch it. We got the money, but we're not gonna use it. Sooner and the program disappears in 5 years, that cable issue, unless they come out with something, some new form of technology, which they could, because that's one of the risks. You know, maybe everything goes wireless and you don't even need cable anymore. I don't know. I don't think that's gonna happen. Neither does Kevin, neither does our technology committee. So then all of a sudden you don't have any extra money and you still have that problem sitting in the ground. And now you're going to, it went up $20,000 in 1 year. And you're still going to have to deal with that situation because if you want our kids to be able to use technology, they've got to have the bandwidth.
You're not gonna be able to do it. No. We'll have all this great technology money.
It'll bog everything.
It'll bog everything down. You won't, yeah.
I mean, I'm always amazed by technology. Our computers get faster and faster, but we expect more and more. So when I hit that button on the computer, my expectation is that bang, it's right there. And if you have to wait too long, you see frustration, you see all of that. And that won't work in the classroom.
Discipline, you have discipline issues. I think that when we originally started talking about this is for all this E-rate, so this stuff, E-rate thing really happened very quickly, and it's ending, the deadline is like tomorrow, Thursday. That's the deadline for everyone nationwide. There's just mass scrambling. But when I originally brought it up, I said to Bob and to the committee is, you need to be aware that we have this need, and at the time we thought it was around $70,000. The board needs to figure out a way to budget for this because this need is not going to go away, right? And all of a sudden this program kind of just evolved, and they threw a couple extra $1 billion into it in December, and all of a sudden it was like, well, wait a minute here. Instead of saying there's no way we're going to get money, all of a sudden there's a legitimate shot. The district would see this one-time money. And so I think that, so, you know, and I'm essentially done, but as we are demanding more from the classroom, right, from technology, and our kids are more mobile every single day, not just 9-12, we're talking the 1-2-3s, right? The need is not going to go away. And traditionally, all of our schools, the elementary has the slowest technology and all that, not going to happen anymore. It has just changed dramatically. And I just think all of our districts need, you know, everything I'm presenting tonight is very unglamorous. They're a bunch of blinky light stuff. There's stuff that's going to get gray and brown, so I'm not going to have this nice shiny iPad or Chromebook. It's going to be stuff that's going to facilitate that. So when they turn something on, you know, and I was just browsing on the internet here, and gosh, it was quicker than quick. I get 600 kids doing something and it crawls. I want to make sure that when the kids are, when there's an assignment, they're looking at what's going on, what's in Germany or whatever, they can get that information, because that's when discipline problems happen and all that, when it's slow and you just see it in every school. The kids are goofing around, teacher loses control. So.
And the good piece of this is that the technology committee has been aware of this, and we've done the paperwork and we've done that. It's coming to the board now so that you get this information, so that you can process it, so that you can ask questions. You know, we have time to be able to do that. That's a good thing. Nobody is coming right now before the board and saying, I need a decision today. You know, we're going to talk about it at our next 5-year capital plan. It might be something that we might say, well, let's put a little money away every year, because we know this is coming, or for the next 2 years. So this is just informational. That's what the intent of this was for. All of the questions you can direct to me, and I'll get answers from Kevin if he's on them. I'll talk with the city, see if there is any way that we can look at piggybacking off of other lines. I don't know if there is or isn't, or what the cost is, but we can find that out. I think those are absolutely legitimate questions. We don't have the money, so we have time to be able to get that information for the board. And like I said, now is the time for us to talk about it and beat it up, because it's just coming here as an informational type thing. Certainly the technology committee will come to this board with their recommendation. And so will the 5-year capital committee.
But we don't have to apply for anything.
We've already done it all.
applied.
I'll leave you at least the application that we filed that basically breaks down what we're asking for, but probably more important, it breaks down what the demographics of the Paynesville area schools are, number of kids, free and reduced lunch and all that, so you can see the calculations. What basically, if we get it, then we can say what do we really want to do with it. We've got plenty of opportunity. I don't anticipate that we're going to see a funding decision until maybe June. I just think they've extended the deadline by 3 weeks because the major districts in the nation asked for an extension because they couldn't get all their stuff done, which I believe is going to push everything back. And when you see the detail that they're asking for, it's a federal program. You can just imagine the paperwork, right? How are they going to go through, I know how much it is for just Paynesville area schools. What happens in Minneapolis, where this 18-page document is 620 pages? I mean, that's this. But as far as paperwork and the strings attached, it's very clean from the federal government.
Yeah. And most of what we looked at and talked about with our technology committee was really infrastructure besides that line. It's making sure that we have all the equipment in our buildings themselves to be able to not, even if we have a line in there, a new line, we've got to be able to get information back and forth. So that's where some of the other money was that we had talked about at the technology committee going. But again, no decision now. This is informational to let you be aware of the program, think about it. Heck, come up with questions on why we shouldn't do it. That's what the discussion is all about. That's why you have it now in plenty of advance time to be able to ask all those tough questions and say, where are we going to do it? How is this going to impact our budget? All those types of things. That's the good thing about this.
So, who's going to find out what it costs us to hook into another line and see what other options we have?
We'll get you to answer your question.
Yeah. Well, and I guess maybe my gray hair is catching up to me, but we used to have telephones that traveled through lines all over and they were buried and everything. We all carry cell phones now, right? Technology, we're going to bury a fiber optic line. Yeah, that's somewhat recent, but it's 10 years old or 20 years old. Well, we're going to bury that thing in this day and age when could we be 5 years from now and this is all going through the airways and we wasted $27,600 in taxpayers' money?
I don't foresee that with the fiber happening. You still need the infrastructure. If you go down I-94 or any state highway, you see guys in the trenches burying fiber constantly because that's the backbone of all communication. Up and down 94, I-55, there is fiber everywhere. And the design is to make sure that infrastructure is in place. The other reason that we want to really do this is I want that data, and the district wants that data confidential. We want to own that fiber in between here and there, so no IEP information gets released, and we can control that. I mean, there's, this isn't government secret, but this is IEP information. This is a lot of really pertinent information of who our kids are, right? In hindsight, the fiber is the right fiber.
If you have 2 3M factories that are 5 miles apart and a fiber optic goes by there, do they run their own cable between them?
100%.
Seriously.
100%.
And Bruce, we can get that's a legitimate question. You should ask questions like that. You know, we should check to see if there's anything here, and we can contact the city or wherever the cable providers are and get that information and say, if we wanted to piggyback off of these things, what would it look like? They may say you can't do it. They may say it'll cost you this much. I think that's a legitimate question to get an answer for before we start spending the money.
I think the other piece is that, you know, operational budgets, John will tell you about this. You know, you buy it once, you own it. Versus paying monthly, every single month when you lease. There's pros and cons to both approaches. It all depends where the funding source is. Most of our schools want to bury that so they don't have that ongoing cost every single year, which consistently rises.
And Jack could make that comparison personally if I knew how much the lease was.
Yeah, and
you know, if the lease was, you paid for the fiber optic in 7 years of lease, but if you paid for it in 25 years of lease, and the fiber optic is obsolete 20 years from now, so we're bearing another one.
I would say you want to contact your cable TV provider.
Yeah, it's not Kevin's thing, so yeah. we'll find out and answer that question. Other questions? Otherwise, again, informational. No decision needs to be made. Got some information to get, but good discussion.
Any comments from the public? It's a business item still. Anybody?
Bruce, I just, your company's not selling that fiber line, or your company's not installing that, correct?
We are not.
So I mean, just from my standpoint, he's not a salesperson here trying to sell us on that way of doing it. We can still do our research and find out if leasing is better, but it's not like gentlemen sitting here selling us, because then hopefully this $100,000 we spend goes to their company.
I think the breakdown is like 50-50 labor versus material. And I think one of the biggest costs of the fiber was we need to get it under 55, and there are a whole slug of permits that have to happen since it's going to get the state road. And this company does, you know, Toronto Foley, they've got great references called Starry, S-T-A-R-R-Y Electric. And they do not have an E-rate, what we call a spin number. It's a federal number. Our company does, so we would run it through us, so we would qualify for the E-rate program. That's my, you know, in truth and disclosure, we would run it through us, so we can at least apply for it. You can't.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to personnel.
Thank you.
Number one, review and consider approval of resignation request from Amy Ruffey, paraprofessional, effective the last student day of 2014-15 school year.
So resignation.
So moved. Have a motion from Mark. Second from Heidi. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider approval of resignation request from Brianna Cowell, Fitness Center employee, effective April 16, 2015.
Anything to add on that, Matt?
She's moving to Texas.
Okay, kind of hard to work for Texas. I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
And seconded by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Review and consider approval of unpaid leave of absence for the 2015-2016 school year for Elsie Hagan, special education teacher.
I would like, number one, I would recommend that we do approve this. But number two, I would like the motion to include that it is contingent upon us finding a suitable replacement for the teacher. Because again, this is leave of absence, we're not paying her anything. It's, you know, but at the same time, I do want to make sure that we have a suitable replacement before we go down that road. We did the same thing with another instructor not too long ago.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve? Motion by Lou.
Second.
Second by Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Okay. Number 4, review and consider approval of adding 1/2 hour per day to Ruth Olmscheide's van driver, van driver beginning Monday, April 20th and going until the end of 2014-15.
This is a special ed situation that I believe that we do need to provide this additional transportation for one of our students.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Second by Kella. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Okay, informational report, secondary school principal report, Lori Flora.
Good evening. It's always fun to hear the students talk about some of their activities. The one story I heard from most all of the students is you follow Mr. Wilkie when it's time to eat, because he knew where all the best places was to get authentic food. So he always had a little parade. One of the kids even had a picture of it, that they were going to dinner and they had this authentic dinner kind of thing. So it was a great trip, and I'm really glad that as a district we continue to support the trip and provide, and our instructors are willing to put in all the extra time to do the fundraising. So it is something that kids can take advantage of. We have a really busy 2 months coming up as we kind of come to the end of the school year. The biggest thing on our plate is the MCA testing all this month. The kids are working really hard and they want to do their best. They've seen really good attitudes going into this first week of testing. We've had some computer glitches, but we're working through those. And it's more not necessarily our computers, it's just working with the state system. But some of the other things going on is we had the choir festival last week. We are hosting the first jazz band festival on the 17th. We have a Ridgewater College Career Day for all our 10th graders are going to be going down to Ridgewater. And they've signed up for 3 different programs that focus on different careers of their interests. And they do like a mini workshop in those career areas. And Ridgewater puts it on, and it's paid through our Carl Perkins program. So that's something that's coming up. And then on April 30th, we're going to have our mock car crash in the afternoon. And the FFA program is actually is working with our county officers as well as our Paynesville police officers. They're setting up some golf cart obstacle courses over by the Reserve Center, kind of in that area. And one officer is going to be in each golf cart, and they're going to drive normal on the obstacle course, time it, and then drive while they're texting, and kind of count like the number of times they go out of the lines or whatnot, and then do the same thing with the beer goggles on. So it should be we're going to do that with 9 through 12, so 9th graders will go out and then the 10th graders. So, and then there's also a video that they'll be watching that also has to do with Minnesota driving accidents, that type of thing. So it's going to be a very good day. If you have the opportunity to come spend part of the day with us, we'd love to have you.
On the same day as the mock car crash.
It is the same day, and I can actually send the schedule over to Bob, so you can kind of come and go with that. And the mock car crash is going to be starting at 1. And I'm very grateful to all of our EMS systems here in Paynesville. They have been wonderful and have been with our staff group planning it. You heard from the kids one of our last meetings, so that's coming up. And then the other big thing going on, and we have lots of parents helping, kids helping, is our prom. So that's kind of getting into the final swings, and kids are starting to decorate and those things. So that's a lot of exciting things going on, along with the end of the year wrap-ups and things. The 2 things that I did give you, Bob mentioned a little bit, and we will be doing more of a work session on this, but I just thought I'd give you some information to start looking at, and I really welcome if you have questions, please give me a call and I can explain it. But the first one looks like this. When you look at this, it's basically setting up, you'll see the class and the predicted number of students in the class. So as I looked at FTEs and said, Bob, this is where I think we're at, There are some courses that I didn't feel we should offer because we just didn't have the student choice to have them. Okay, so there are courses in our curriculum guide that were offered, but we may have only had 2 or 8 kids choose to have them, or choose that on their schedule, so it doesn't make sense for us to offer it. I kind of went with about, Bob had kind of given me the number of 15, kind of around that 15 point as far as 15 students interested in it. There are a couple color codings to it. The yellow, the CES, that's a grant that West Central Ed has allowed the middle school to take advantage of, so we are going to be writing that grant, and we're going to focus on students that are not yet proficient in reading in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, kind of starting with the 6th grade and seeing how far we go. The classes in red print, those you will see a little lower numbers. Those are courses that are for students that are struggling, and we're trying to work on more of the MCA test prep or special education kind of focused. And then the ones that you see in green are our college course credits, or courses that students can also receive college course or concurrent courses, CIS courses. And then you'll see the ones with the red background. Those are CTE courses. And Marcus, you didn't get a color-coded one. I can give you one later. Oh, you didn't? I thought they were part of that. So I'll give you.
Mine passes, so I've got a color-coded one.
The CTE ones, those are courses that we receive articulation credits from the MINSCU colleges, and there is some discussion that the articulation credits may or may not continue with the MINSCU system. So as of now, we can still do it, but they are starting to phase those out and go more with the CIS or the curriculum in the school. So that just kind of gives you an idea of our course numbers and the course selections currently looking at in the schedule. Okay? Then this one is kind of a work in progress, but just so you can kind of start digesting it, so when we get to our work session, it is a comparison I actually had Scott Larson work on. He is my principal student teacher, but student principal. Okay, he was looking for a project, so I kind of started him on this. And you'll see our CIS courses and like the high school credits, the college credits that they earn, and our graduation requirements, etc. And I do think we need to look at this year's 9th grade students coming into our program at possibly raising the number of credits that they need to have on graduation. And there's reasons for that, and I'll at another time kind of go into that, but this gives you kind of a comparison, and like I said, it's still a work in progress. We do have all the college courses offered in many of our surrounding schools, but he's still working on some of the other data. When we compare across schools, the thing that you need to keep in mind is every school is a little different. Some are on trimesters, some give 1 credit a quarter, others give 0.25 a quarter. So when we have our work session, we'll get more into the meat of that. But right now, our students are required to have 90 credits when they graduate. Because we have the 7-period day, a student can still take a study hall every year, and they end up having 96 credits. All right, so that is one of those things that I think we could raise our credits, and then students will tend to say, well, those other 6 credits, I still should expect to do well and push myself to do well because I still need them to graduate. And maybe not all 6, but I do feel it would be advantageous to raise the bar for our students as far as what they need for graduation. So that's just something to kind of start to digest, and as you have questions, please let me know. And I know Bob was planning to have a work session, and we don't have to make that decision until like August 1st. It has to be in prior to the start of our 9th grade, our students starting their 9th grade year.
We'll do the work session in the summer.
So, okay. And that's all I have. Any questions that you might have?
I'm gonna elaborate a little bit on your technology, which you spent so far.
Oh, yeah. What our group are building so far is we've brought in an iPad cart. We've brought in 2 Chromebook carts, which are being very heavily utilized, especially during this testing time. And then, and covers and the actual cart that they're installed in as well. Then the project Lead the Way. You'll see in the proposed budget, I do have the Principles of Engineering class going to start this next year, and the Robotics and Automation course. So there's a group slated for what those will need, and one of the big expenses there is an additional 14 laptops. So that's what we've, and then the other thing was the, Dave, where's Dave? What is it, I forget, to up the connection in the classroom?
Wireless access points.
Wireless access points we added to each of our carts. And then we are also updating our licenses for our current CAD drafting program. And then also 10 books for our paras. Our paras are in the classroom taking notes and taking down assignments, and we have found, we've experimented with a couple of the paras when they have a notebook and being able to send that information to the case managers, and by the end of the day, students are stopping by their case manager, they have a copy of the notes they need, they have a copy of what's gone on in their classes, and it just has made our assistance to our SPED students so much more efficient than doing it all by hand and trying to track things down. So that's kind of a list off the top of my head of what we have spent our dollars for the classroom. So I really, truly appreciate the dollars, and I know our teachers have really put them to good use, what we have in. Jonah and Jim are working really hard to get them all up and running. They've done a fantastic job. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our elementary school principal's report, David Orley.
Good evening. As we get to the end of the school year, we don't necessarily worry about prom and graduation and things. I'm glad Lori does that. We are also, MCAs are underway, and we did also experience a breakdown in the system today, along with every other school in the state that was testing, and Pearson did a pretty good job of getting us back on track. With that, we hope to basically be a month straight. We're testing, and we're, as we've gone through every year, we've tried to come up with a schedule and game plan to create the best environment for students, whether it's individually, whether they're reading it out loud, or small group, or large group, and different things like that. I don't know if I mentioned, we did get awarded 1.5 reading corps tutors for next year, and we got awarded a full-time math corps tutor, but we're looking at making that a half-time position. And our reading corps, it looks like we'll be able to fill with the staff that we have in there now, which is wonderful. Math corps, I think our math corps person is going to be going back to school, and so we do have an opening, and I'll have that posted. And as a school, we really don't have a lot to do with the hiring process, the application process, anything like that. But anyone in the community who is, thinking about it at all, and if you know of somebody, just let me know and have them get in touch with me, and hopefully we can get that filled soon. Just a few things that are going on. We have, on May 14th, we have a group of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders who are going to a young artist, young author conference at St. Ben's. And this is the 4th year that we've done that. And they get to go there and be with many other schools, and they get to pick areas of interest for writing books and things like that. So it's really a neat program. It's not for any type of student, whether gifted or not. It's just, it's teacher recommendations and just who they think would really benefit from an experience like that. So that has been a really good program for us. April 27th is our Ag Day with the high school FFA will be coming over. May 11th, we have a SAD presentation. So we have some high school students coming over for that. Last year they made that bench that's by the district office. And this year they're going to do a presentation on some ceiling tiles that they are currently painting. They'll do a skit, and then they'll take our entire school outside for all school recess at the end of the day. So we're looking forward to that. Technology. We have purchased a number of things. We have a technology committee that meets, and we kind of discuss our needs, and our plan is to start working on a 3-year plan for the technology funds that we do have available. We have some iPads that we gradually want to replace, and smart boards and things like that. So far this year, we have added 3 Chromebook carts, the wireless access points, projectors for smart boards. We've updated our iPads for the special ed department. We've purchased laptops, and right now, when we meet, we're discussing the best way to utilize that technology. And so right now, every classroom K2 has 4 Chromebooks in their room, whereas they used to be just an old desktop or 2 if they were lucky, and now the students have access to 4 of them, and we do a lot of small group work in that level, so that has really been a big boost for us. And then we're focusing the Chromebook carts for grades 3 through 5, and students in 3 through 5 all have a Google account, and they're able to communicate with the teacher, assignments and things like that, which has really been a neat project for us. Any questions for me?
Thank you. Next, we have the community education report.
Okay, good evening. We had our talent showcase on Sunday. We had just about a full house, so we're still getting the final report on what we raised, but majority of that will be going towards projects, of course, in the auditorium. We are in need of a soundboard right now, which is partly funded on the capital plan that's hopefully going to be approved soon, but the remainder will go towards that, and it's all poured back into the auditorium. Our central office is at full staff now, so we're very happy to have our new team member that's there working with us. 2 of our major summer activities, Little League Baseball and Fast Pitch Softball, both start this week, so summer's getting into full swing already. Our new summer brochure goes to the press this Friday and will be mailed in your mailboxes a week from Saturday. So, our summer camp pause registration deadline is May 1st, so there's a lot of buzz about that, but most people wait till the last minute in our business to register for everything, so it's a lot up in the air on staffing, and we just don't know how many to plan for yet for summer. You should have received a link today for our most recent episode of BNC TV, and we have Robin Spaeth who's in here tonight. That's one of our teachers who took the challenge of, I said, with a phone you can record your event, and that was totally all recorded from her. She just put it in a folder, and we can highlight those things. So we're trying to encourage even more teachers to do that. We realize that sometimes that's the last thing you feel like doing when you're busy doing an activity, but if you can even give somebody else that phone, so we can highlight some more of those things. So good job, Robin. We just added 3 new treadmills to us in the fitness center. They came off a 3-year lease at a 55 and over country club in New Jersey. So we got a really good buy on some great technology for new treadmills. They replaced 3 of our machines that were over 12 years old. So our stuff has really been lasting. So that's all I have. Any questions for me?
Thank you very much. Okay, then we have our activities director report. Max Maher.
Well, in no particular order, I'll try and go fast. My dad's an auctioneer now. A couple items on the 5-year capital plan that we're hopeful as far as the activities is redoing the high school gym floor and putting gates in on what is referred to as Janot Road in between the softball, so we don't have that chain that's not visible at all when people are going through there. So I'm excited about that. Baseball grandstand, I don't know if Bob will allude to it at all in his report, but right now the inspector is actually on vacation, so the Friday that was going to be the opening isn't going to be the opening. Anyways, we're getting over that so far. We've been able to, if you see people that are involved with these area fields like Henry, Regal, those people do an outstanding job. We play for free and they get the fields ready for us. It's remarkable. So we're really thankful for that. All of our spring sports have started now competing as of today, except for 7th and 8th baseball and softball, which will have their first games on Thursday. So track and field and golf got started today as well. At the end of March, I was at the State Athletic Directors Conference. A couple of areas of highlight. The Minnesota State High School League is really doing I guess they're really putting an emphasis on the coaches' education and why we play. So there's a lot of sessions on that. And then numerous other things that I'm looking forward to implementing in the activities department. Tomorrow we'll have our first CMC conference administration meeting. Bob and I will be attending in Clearwater. And, we're officially out of the West Central Conference at the end of this spring, so that is beneficial. The first week of April 1st, actually, we had that meeting. I'm hopeful to schedule an activities committee meeting, and that would be with Lou and Cheryl. I'm not sure if you have your calendars or not, if you wanted to look, but Wednesday, April 29th at 6 p.m. if that would work. And I can send you an email tomorrow morning, but I just thought I'd mention that. On Saturday, we're going to do a Fields Ground cleanup day sponsored by the Booster Club. The Community Ed purchased a portable fence for the JV baseball field. Hopefully we can get that installed on Saturday if we have enough people. That's going to be at 9 o'clock. This past Saturday was a Hog Roast Hall of Fame event sponsored by the Booster Club. So there's 3 individuals inducted into the Paynesville Bulldog Athletic Hall of Fame on Saturday. So that's kind of a lot of things. It's what's going on, the sun's shining, and people are happy because they're outside in activities. So if you have any questions for me, you can take them now, otherwise send an email or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be the Technology Committee report. Mark?
Well, most of it was kind of had out already. Yeah, a couple other things though that I want to add to that is we're still looking, we gathered some information already for the job description. So that process is just going to be starting on figuring out what is it that we want to have for that job description. Some of the other things that we're looking at is mobile devices that are owned by staff people. Who is responsible for keeping them up and running when they bring in and they don't connect to the system and so on and so forth. So we had some dialogue on that part of it and more to come with that. And then basically trying to figure out a little bit more on what we want to do, you know, with all the money that we're getting from the levies and stuff like that. So slowly but surely, we will get that information out to everybody. But the biggest thing was the tech check with this catering was a big part of our meeting, so that's about all I have right now.
Okay. Then we're on number 7, budget and finance committee reports. Cheryl. Oh, did I miss one? Oh, I did miss you. Sorry about that, Al.
We had a meeting where they were wondering what was important to the district because it doesn't look like we're going to get a lot of the things that's up there. There's such a big political wrangling going on right now. If you look at the dollars that are being proposed to be spent on education, the Senate is proposing $350 million, the House is $150 million, and the governor's $694 million. So somewhere they got meat in between there. So I don't think anybody has a clue where this is going to end up.
Special session. We're just going to do. We're not going to be able to decide, but you know, it's what's discouraging again is that the governor has a lot of money that he's earmarking, but nobody is saying any more than 1% for, you know, just the board of the school.
They did say if you could get the community and the school board to send emails in to your representatives and keep pressure on them to get 3%, we have to do that.
Yeah. Because at 1% we will go backwards.
You got that one? So it's everybody in the community can see it on television. We need everybody to email them or contact them for that 3%, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move to budget and finance. Cheryl.
I really don't have a lot more to add because we pretty much discussed it all.
Yeah, it's really about where the main piece was about the budget and possible reductions or adjustments. That's where the main focus came in. The whole board and the community will hear more about that at the next meeting. Will be much more specific.
Okay, next is Lou, Facility and Equipment Committee.
Okay, we met March 31st, covered 9 for 9 on our 5-year plan. I'll just hit some of the highlights. It talked about the playground slide, and I think Max mentioned the fire lane and gates. Talked about those. Talked about the fiber optic line again, and some water fountains and some improvement in buildings, and talked about a new entryway for the elementary, so it would be a safety issue, and discussed the gym floors, which Max mentioned, and painting of the vocational building inside, and some heating, ventilation and hallway heaters, and that type of roof repair, which we've already talked about, and some soundboard replacement for the auditorium. And the lunchroom tables, they want new tables with the chairs attached to the tables. And it's about, well, there was a whole bunch of other stuff, but that's about the main things. That's it.
Any questions of anybody? Okay, next one is the administrative meeting report. Robert Stevens.
Just with the 5-year plan, we'll be meeting again next week, and then hopefully we'll come to the board with that to be approved. So we're getting close to that. We just have a few last tweaks hopefully, and then we'll come to the board. The OCR visit, the Office of Civil Rights did visit us, and we're just waiting. Probably the only piece that really is looking like it will cost some dollars is that in the Lance Trans building we are going to need to make it handicapped accessible, ADA compliant. So there's 2 bathrooms in there. We'll make one ADA compliant, make them unisex bathrooms, and deal with that. That will be in our 5-year plan that we'll present. But we need to do that. Transportation contract always been an ongoing thing. We're kind of down to language now. I think for the most part we've gotten a lot of the other things hammered out. But I'm just finding that and part of the reason is just like we're switching our whole contract to the state model. So we're really revamping the whole contract this time. So we're in the process of trying to hammer out those language pieces that go with that. It's based on the Minnesota Transportation, their model contract. So there's a lot of changes, and that's why it's taken a little bit longer too, because as this new language comes out, there's questions on our part, there's questions on the transportation part, but we keep moving in the right direction. There were a number of questions last time when we presented, we've gotten those answered. I gotta get that back to transportation now, and hopefully we'll keep moving closer and closer, but it's moving in the right direction. We hope to bring that to the board as soon as we can. We'd love to have it on the next meeting, but I've been saying that, I think, for 3 meetings. So we'll see how that goes. Calendar, I'm getting tired of waiting. Most likely, if I don't hear anything, if I don't get any idea, I'm just going to bring the one calendar that by state law I need to have at this point, and then if it changes, then I might approach the board and say, here's another calendar. Let's talk about this one and see if we want to switch it. But I am getting a little bit tired of waiting for the legislatures to make any kind of decision. Budget, we're continuing to work on that, but we've talked a lot about that today. Technology committee, we're looking at the plan, we're looking at hiring a person to help us with technology and make some shifts that we had talked about in the technology when we passed the levy. Health insurance right now, we're in the middle of, we've met with all our unions, we're in the middle right now of taking a look at all the bids and trying to make some decisions. The district kind of is set on where we're at because we do need to have a minimum value plan, and the PEEP plan does not have that, but PEEP is looking at their plans right now, and I expect them to come out with their recommendations. It may be the same, it may change depending on how each organization or each union takes a look at it. So that's going on. Stadium project, just be aware is that the thing that's holding us up with that is the certificate or letter of occupancy.
I got a question on that.
Sure.
Why can't you use the field?
No, you could, but my question to you would be then how are you going to keep them people
Well,
on?
no, I know, but you still could.
They could practice on the field right now. And you're absolutely right, Lou. My problem about having games there is that how am I going to keep the people out of the stands? There's still no place to do it. I am absolutely, I would tell you, and I would love to go watch the first game in that stadium as much as anybody, I promise everybody. But without that certificate of occupancy, number one, we'd be breaking the law because you have to have that to get into a structure, and we will be opening up the door for major liabilities if anything happened if we didn't have it. So just be aware that, I know that Chris and Bruce are working on getting everything finished as fast as they can, but I've got to see that before I can allow a game to go in there. And that, so part of it is me just saying, nope, I need to have this before we can have people in the stands. They can practice on the field, they can do all of that. They just cannot be in the building or in the stands until we get that type of thing. And believe me, I wish, there's nobody that wishes it different because I know people are getting antsy to get in there. That would be about it.
Okay. Any other sharing of the board on any issues? Nothing? Yeah, I have entertain a motion to adjourn. A motion by Lou, second by Mark. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no.